As a follow-up to my last segment on sellers, I'd like to continue with some more information for the sellers. Think of this. When the listing agent and the listing broker do not bring the buyer, that means there's a buyer's agent and a buyer's broker involved in the transaction. All of a sudden, the listing agent loses control of the deal because the buyer's agent and the buyer's broker are typically the ones that are going to recommend what mortgage company to use, what building inspectors to use, what termite inspector to use, and they are working for just the buyer. When I represent the buyer and the seller, this is an ideal situation for everybody. The buyer will ask me for my advice on who do I recommend, and I will recommend people that are very impartial, very honest, very professional, and I've used them for years. I like this scenario. I know who the building inspector is. I know who the mortgage person is. I can tell you hundreds and hundreds of situations where when the buyer's agent picks the mortgage guy, I don't know who the mortgage guy is if I'm the seller's agent. I have no control over what that person does. And there's been many cases where the mortgage broker said this buyer is pre-approved. So we take the house off the market, it becomes pending, and 30, 45 days goes by and we find out that the buyer can't get a mortgage. Is there any remuneration or retribution for the seller for taking their house off the market? No, none. You just lost 45 days because we had an inferior mortgage person who didn't know what to do. Same thing's true with the building inspection. I've seen hundreds of sales die because the building inspector did a crappy job. Sometimes these guys need to prove that they know everything about everything, and for $300 they're going to prove it by there's one instance where there's one building inspector that does a single family home, and his report is 160 pages long for $300. Okay? I've had that building inspector, as I'm the seller's agent, and the buyer's agent has chosen that building inspector, and 11 times that building inspector has done an inspection, and 10 of the 11 times he's canceled the deal. Because it's his job to scare the poop out of the buyers so that, guess what? They cancel the deal, and when they go and find another house, they need to get a building inspection, and guess who they call? The same guy again. I have one instance where they did it 3 times, and finally the 3rd time the buyer said, let's not use that inspector again because he's too technical. He scares us to death. So the 3rd time that the buyers bought a house, they used my building inspector, and they were very happy with the results. And the way he explains the situation, this is not a brand new house. There are things that are not going to be perfect. Here's the things I found wrong with this house. It's just how they say it and professionally how they present it to the buyer that makes a huge difference in whether the buyer cancels your deal or not. These are just a couple of the things that can get in the way. Here's another one. A lot of the homeowners associations now have a transfer fee, a one-time initiation fee, a setting up a new account fee. Most of these fees are not disclosed on the seller's disclosure or the homeowners association disclosure like they're supposed to be. So when I take a listing, I make sure that the seller discloses all these things up front, because the buyers have the right to cancel the deal or require the seller to pay these fees if they're not disclosed on the homeowners association disclosure. More and more realtors are not doing this because they're afraid to ask the questions, and the buyers get to the closing and say, what the heck is this? $1,000 initiation fee? Nobody ever told me about that. So these are some of the things that come up over the years where I will not let them happen to you during this process if I'm the seller's agent. Thank you. Have a great day.